All right, so you scored that interview for director of HR. That's a big deal. Those pre-interview jitters starting to creep in. Well, that's to be expected. But you're in the right place. We're going to do a deep dive into some common interview questions. We'll give you the inside track on how to craft answers that'll really help you shine.
Yeah, at this level, it's not just about, knowing HR basics.
Right.
Right. They're looking for someone who can lead strategically, someone who can handle the unexpected, someone who can champion the employees and still make sure that the company's goals are, front and center.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Right. Yeah.
But instead of a balancing pole, you've got all of this HR expertise.
Exactly.
So how do we nail that balancing act right from the start?
Well, I think it starts with understanding what is the interviewer really looking for. It's about demonstrating that you can be, empathetic, but also strategic.
Right.
That you can advocate for your team, but also safeguard the company's best interests.
Okay, so it's about showing them you're not just an HR expert, but you're a leader who can navigate these complex situations that might come up.
Exactly. And that you can handle the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready to dive into some common interview questions and kind of uncover the strategies behind crafting, those really good answers?
Let's do it. I know you have got some seriously insightful answers up your sleeves.
Okay, well, let's start with a classic. Describe a time you had to handle a conflict within your team. I mean, I feel like that question is almost guaranteed to come up, right?
It's like the dreaded conflict question that every interviewer seems to love to throw in the mix. So how do we really knock this one out of the park?
Yeah, so I think with this question, it's all about showcasing your leadership skills and your ability to, solve problems. So you really want to think back to a conflict that you successfully navigated, and think about, what did you do and what were the results. But the key here is to emphasize how you didn't just resolve the conflict, but that you used it as an opportunity to really strengthen team dynamics.
Interesting. So it's not just about putting out the fire, but it's about taking that situation and actually using it to better the team as a whole.
Yeah.
How can our listener make sure that they're hitting on that as they're answering the question?
Yeah, so instead of just describing the steps that you took, really focus on the why. Like, why did you take those steps? So, for example, did you use active listening techniques to make sure that everyone felt heard? Did you facilitate a conversation that focused on finding common ground, and shared goals? And these are really the nuances, right, that demonstrate that you have a much deeper understanding of what conflict resolution is and how it can really impact the team in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's showing that you understand that there's a human element to conflict and you can kind of spin that and use that as a positive thing to help the team.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about legal compliance.
Yeah.
That's obviously a huge part of HR. So how should our listener prepare for any questions surrounding that?
Yeah, and they might ask you something like, how do you ensure compliance with HR laws and regulations? And so,
Okay.
of course, staying up to date on legislation, especially because it's constantly changing, that's important.
Right.
But to really stand out, go a little bit beyond that.
Okay, so how do we take it to that next level? What's really going to make that answer pop?
I would say focus on being proactive and building a culture of compliance. So you could talk about how you would implement regular training programs for your team, and not just as a checkbox, we have to do this, but as an opportunity to really get people to understand what are these policies and procedures.
Yeah. It shows that you're not just following the bare minimum, but you're really trying to build that into the company culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. What's next?
Okay. So let's talk about strategic alignment. And this is really, the area where you can connect the dots between your HR initiatives and the overall company's objectives.
This is where it feels very big picture, which can be kind of intimidating in an interview. So how can our listener kind of get in the zone and feel comfortable speaking to this?
Yeah, I think preparation is key here. So before even going into the interview, do your homework. Research the company thoroughly. Look at their mission, their values. What have they been, what are some recent achievements? What are some challenges that they're facing? And start to think about how can HR support these goals?
It's really positioning HR not just as an administrative function, but really as a strategic driver for the company?
Exactly. So, for example, if the company's focus is on, rapid expansion, then you can talk about your experience with talent acquisition strategies and building high-performing teams really quickly. Or let's say they're dealing with high turnover.
Right.
You can discuss your approach to boosting employee engagement and, keeping those retention numbers high.
Okay. So it's about understanding their specific needs
Mm-hmm.
and showing how your HR expertise can actually contribute to their bottom line.
Exactly. You want them to see you as like a strategic partner,
Yeah.
not just someone who's handling payroll and benefits.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Now, speaking of talent,
Okay.
are you ready to tackle some questions about attracting and retaining top talent?
Absolutely. That's where it gets juicy. Let's do it. Okay. Let's talk talent. It seems like every company wants to attract the best and the brightest. So how should our listener approach that question about attracting and retaining top talent?
Yeah, it's a big one. This is where you really want to, open up that HR toolkit and show them what you've got. So instead of giving those kind of generic answers, like
Yeah.
instead of just saying employer branding, give them specifics.
Yeah, get specific, paint a picture for them. What are some examples that our listener could use?
Okay, so think about who is the company trying to attract. So let's say, for example, they're trying to get a lot of tech-savvy Gen Zers.
Right.
You can talk about, how you use social media to recruit or how you've used virtual onboarding to create a really great experience.
Right.
Or maybe they're going after, more seasoned executives.
Right.
Then you would talk about your success with maybe more like targeted headhunting and how you've put together really amazing compensation packages that, really appeal to, that demographic.
Yeah. It shows them that you're really understanding their specific needs, and you can tailor your approach based on, what they're looking for. Now, a lot of companies are really, really focused these days on retention.
Mm.
What are some key things that our listener should be sure to highlight when they're answering a question about retention?
Yeah, I think retention goes beyond just, competitive salary and benefits.
Right.
Although those are super important, of course. But talk about company culture, right?
Right.
How have you fostered an environment where people feel valued, where they're excited to come to work every day and they're given the opportunity to grow?
Yeah, it's about that whole environment and making it a place where people actually want to show up every day.
Exactly. And feeling valued for their contributions.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Okay, I'm ready for another one. What else should our listeners be prepared to answer?
Okay, so get ready for this one. Tell me about a successful HR initiative that you led.
Oh, okay.
So this is your time to shine.
Time to toot your own horn a little bit, but strategically, of course.
Yeah.
So what makes for a really good answer to this question?
Okay, so choose an initiative that shows, your leadership. It really highlights those leadership skills. It shows that you're innovative. And most importantly, focus on the results.
Right.
Okay? So, for example, instead of just saying, well, I implemented this brand new performance management system,
Right.
talk about how it actually improved employee engagement.
Right.
Or maybe it even reduced turnover, Give them some numbers.
Yes, data is king. Right?
Yes, data is king.
Quantifiable results will show them, that you know what you're doing.
Exactly, and that it made a real impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, I'm ready for some rapid fire now.
Okay.
What other questions do you have up your sleeve?
Okay, so let's test your reflexes. Here are a few kind of curveball questions that you might get in a director-level interview. And these are really designed to see, how adaptable you are and really kind of, show them the range of your HR expertise.
Okay.
So, number one, workforce planning. How do you approach it, especially as it relates to succession planning?
Okay, so thinking ahead, succession planning. What are some of the key things our listeners should touch on there?
Yeah, it's about anticipating future needs, right? And making sure that there's a pipeline of qualified individuals ready to kind of step into those leadership roles.
Right.
So talk about your experience with talent assessments, developing leadership programs, creating career paths.
Right.
Really think about the long term.
It's about showing them that you're not just filling the roles for today, but you're thinking 5-10 years down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, love that. Okay, next rapid fire question. What do we have?
Okay, let's talk about implementing significant changes within an organization. How would you say you have done that successfully in the past? And how did you lead your team through those transitions?
Yeah, change is inevitable, right? Especially in such a fast-paced world. So what's the key to answering that effectively?
I think focusing on communication, being really transparent, and also being empathetic.
Right.
Because change can be really unsettling for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So describe the process. How would you communicate it? How do you address people's concerns? And how do you get your team on board?
Right. It's about being that steady presence, right? You're the one guiding the ship,
Exactly.
as you're going through those, like, maybe choppy waters sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of choppy waters, what about employee grievances?
Yeah.
How should our listener prepare for that kind of question?
Okay, so this is about, again, being sensitive, right? It's about handling things fairly and with discretion.
Yeah, it's about that balance, right? Like, you want to be supportive of your employees, but you also have to protect the company.
Mm-hmm.
So what's kind of like the sweet spot there? What's the best way to approach a question like that?
I think it's really demonstrating that you have a process
Right.
for handling grievances. So talk about creating a respectful work environment where everyone feels safe to, voice their concerns
Right.
and that they're taken seriously, and you're going to conduct a fair investigation, document everything, and of course, make sure that all the actions you take are in line with company policy and also, legal requirements.
So you're kind of like that neutral third party, making sure everything is fair and transparent.
Exactly. It's a lot of mediating in those situations.
Absolutely. Okay, what other rapid fire challenges do we have?
Okay, let's talk compensation and benefits. So how do you make sure that your company's staying competitive,
Right.
in this job market to attract that top talent, but then you're also managing the budget?
Right. Because it is a very, like, it's a tough job market right now, right?
Yeah.
So you want to offer those competitive packages, but at the same time, you don't want to, break the bank.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what are some of the key things that our listener could highlight?
Yeah, so this is about, really understanding how to benchmark salary.
Right.
Doing market research to see what are the trends
Right.
and understanding the, all the ins and outs of those total reward packages. And, don't be afraid to talk about your experience negotiating with vendors
Right.
or, really thinking outside the box, coming up with creative benefits and figuring out how do I give the most value to our employees, but I'm also sticking to the budget.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're that financial steward, right?
Exactly.
But in a creative way.
Exactly. You've got to get creative.
Love it. Okay. What else? Fire away.
Okay, let's talk tech.
Okay.
Because technology is changing the HR landscape so rapidly these days.
Absolutely.
So, how have you used technology in the past to improve your HR processes or make things more efficient?
Yeah. The tech question. I feel like HR is becoming so data-driven now
It is.
that you really do have to be tech savvy.
You do.
So what should our listeners really be highlighting when they're answering this question?
Yeah, so don't just give them a laundry list of software that you've used.
Right.
Choose like a specific example, right?
Right.
Where you implemented a technology and it made a real difference.
Yeah.
So did you implement a new HRIS system
Right.
that really streamlined onboarding?
Right.
Or maybe you used an AI recruiting platform
Right.
that helped you attract a more diverse set of candidates.
Yeah, it's about showing that you're not afraid to use technology to make things better for everyone.
Exactly. Make things more efficient.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, last rapid fire.
Okay, last one. Tell me about a time when you had to mediate between upper management and employees to resolve a conflict.
Ooh, okay, so you're really getting into those like delicate situations where you have to kind of like, navigate those waters very carefully. So,
Yeah.
what are your key takeaways on that one?
Yeah. So it's about being a bridge, right? You are facilitating communication and you're helping everyone find common ground.
Right.
So really focus on those active listening skills.
Right.
You're remaining neutral and objective, and how do you get to a solution that works for everyone?
Right. Find that middle ground where everybody feels heard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Finding that common ground, especially when you're in that leadership position, is so important. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about that balancing act, right? That HR directors have to, like, really master.
Yeah, it's that awareness, right, of kind of representing both sides, the employees and the company. So you're advocating for the employees. You want to make sure that they're being treated fairly, that there's a positive work environment. But at the same time, you're keeping in mind the business goals and making sure that all of your HR decisions are aligning with that.
So you're kind of like that bridge, right, between those two, making sure that everybody feels heard.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so important for the interview.
Right.
When you can demonstrate that awareness.
Yeah.
Because it really shows that you understand, all the different facets of this role.
Absolutely.
That you're not just an HR expert, but you're also a strategic thinker who can handle, all of those nuances.
Yeah. So it's not just about having the right answers. It's about showcasing your ability to kind of balance all those different perspectives.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're answering those tough questions about, conflict resolution or legal compliance or, even talent acquisition, really, let that awareness kind of shine through
Right. Right.
because it's going to make your answers just that much stronger, that much more insightful, and it shows that you're thinking strategically.
Absolutely. This has been so insightful, honestly. I feel like our listeners are walking into that interview armed and ready to impress.
Yes.
Any final words of wisdom as they prepare to really knock this interview out of the park?
I would say just remember, you've got this.
Yeah.
You've put in the work, you've dedicated your career to really understanding this field.
Yeah.
So let that passion and expertise really shine through,
Yeah.
Showcase those strategic thinking skills, your ability to be empathetic, while also having that, that business acumen
Right.
and that commitment to really building a workplace where people thrive,
Right.
That's what it's all about. And this is your chance not just to answer their questions, but to share your vision for the future of HR.
Love it.
Yeah.
Leave them excited.
Yeah.
About what you can bring to the table.
Exactly.
You got this.